What industry is booming way more than people think? Story 1. Grid-scale battery storage, used to store excess electricity from wind and solar farms for use during peak demand. This industry is huge and is growing exponentially, especially as the cost of batteries continue to drop and demand increases. Answer: storing excess energy from off-peak time for later use has always fascinated me. Batteries are getting there and offer a lot of logistical advantages. Places with large elevation changes can and do use the excess energy to drive large pumps and pump water into an upstream reservoir, which can later be used to drive turbines to generate electricity again. Probably looking at around a 30 loss in energy overall there, but it's dead simple, and if the energy would otherwise be 100 partied too hard, it still makes sense. Definitely excited to see how this all gets sorted out with the huge drive for energy. Story 2. Pest control quietly, a 5.11 growth year over year. PE firms are buying the mom and pop shops like crazy, anything over 1 mem in revenue that shows a healthy business plan. Answer: and yet, surprisingly, I haven't seen PE itself anywhere in this thread, even though PE is like a virus that has spread everywhere and is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, orders of magnitude bigger than anything else that's been mentioned. And like any particularly virulent pathogen, it has eliminated or maimed many of its hosts, too. For every person talking about the incessant enshittification of everything and chalking it up to out-of-control corporatism, in actuality, it's simply legally mandated behavior due to American corporate law, but that's a different issue. The truth is that, often enough, it's actually a private PE firm that's driving your favorite company hell. Story 3. HVAC. More areas where you used to get by just fine with an open window and a box fan are getting unbearably hot in the summers. Answer: my son did this. All the guys are old and their bodies are broken down. Toxic work environment. Long hours. But holy shoot, can you make bank? He quit to go to school, but his friend dropped out of school to do HVAC, and in a little over 2 years he's making 50R and a shoot ton of OT. 20 to 30 hours of OT are available every week. He's 22. Very smart kid with great troubleshooting skills. Some of the new hires, not so much. Story 4. The second-hand clothing resale industry. Everyone talks about fast fashion, but vintage and thrift stores are quietly driving a huge economy. Story 5. The used car market. I work on the back end in the commercial lending side for car dealerships. The tariffs, or threat of, on new cars has pushed used car prices towards ridiculous numbers. I occasionally show up at auctions to gauge market trends, and a 2017 VW Jetta with 133k miles hammered at 11k. Plus auction fees and transport, it'll be 12k, and that's before the dealer has done any repairs or made $1 of profit. Pre-COVID, a 8-year-old Jetta would be 2k tops, but people keep paying it. My market share has risen about 40 since January. Answer: I believe it's far worse in rural areas. A local dealer here wants 20k for a 2015 Ford Flex. That kind of pricing is typical around here. Anything with less than 120k miles on it is priced over 20k, regardless of the year. A family member is looking for a used car with under 100k miles on it, and I keep telling them to just go to a nearby city 350 miles away and spend the weekend car shopping. Doesn't help that a single company seems to own all the dealerships within 100 miles of here. Story 6. Not specifically one industry, but any industry that relies on technicians who know how to troubleshoot legitimate problems effectively are in very short supply across the board. A lot of old-timers are retiring from manufacturing and maintenance jobs, and not as many young people are going into those jobs in many cases. Too many businesses thought they could get old-timer experience without the pay, then get burned once those old farts retired. The young talent won't stick around when they can't even afford a house in that city. Source: aircraft mechanic. Answer: too many businesses thought they could get old-timer experience without the pay, then get burned once those old farts retired. The young talent won't stick around when they can't even afford a house in that city. I'm amazed this took as long as it did to become a problem. Lots of businesses run on people who have painfully gathered experience over years or decades. They rightfully want to be paid for this, and will hit the bricks if you offer them something in the minimum wage region. Since experts can't be produced quickly, the entire industry gradually gets trashed. Farming, nursing, elevator maintenance, machining, mechanics, you name it. Service jobs can't readily be outsourced to another country, or in many cases even to another state. So, the business people end up being in a situation where they can't make the business pay at the wages they need to be providing. Story 7. I love how all of the most popular RAS credit questions are now economic and career questions. Good sign, everything is going well. Story 8. Plastic minis and war games. Seriously, Games Workshop brings in more for the British economy than the entire fishing industry. It's actually mad how much people will pay for that stuff when it's so very cheap to make. Please ignore me and my Skaven army over here. It's entirely justified when I do it. Answer: it's perfect timing too. 40K has a not entirely unearned reputation as a dad hobby. And now that an entire generation of millennial strategy nerds have aged to the point they have a spare 50-80 month to spend on hobbies, Games Workshop is getting a huge proportion of that. We might not be able to throw down money on a $1.7 million home, but goddammit, with enough time we can accumulate a 700 Warhammer army. Story 9. Energy, particularly electricity, due to AI demand. Electricity demand has been pretty slow and steady the past couple decades due to better efficiency, but now AI has caused a huge spike. Answer: my brother works for a power company that supplies power on the east and west coasts. He is constantly flying around the country to negotiate land deals to create more infrastructure to supply this need. He also meets with local power companies and contracts them to supply their power. For example, not his actual client, he would supply Smoothie, the utility company for Sacramento, for all their electricity needs, which Smoothie then sells to the residents. This is prominent in California, where a lot of the tech is based, but also has stricter laws regarding the generation of that power, so they're building transmission lines from NVAZ where they can create the power at a lower cost with less environmental regulations. Billions of dollars are involved. My brother is just a small cog in the wheel of this major conglomerate company that employs thousands of people and provides electricity to millions of residents. Fun fact: the majority of power on the West Coast is currently generated via natural gas. Story 10. Mental health and wellness technology, e.g., digital therapy apps, telepsychiatry, and wellness platforms. Answer: booming, yes, but not for the actual providers. In fact, we are getting paid less and less by tech and insurance companies while being expected to jump through more hoops. It's all to maximize profit to whichever VC company owns the group practice or app or whatever. It also doesn't result in better quality care for clients. BC therapy is a job that really does have a pretty hard ceiling for how much the therapist can take on energetically, emotionally, mentally, and logistically before we start to burn out. and quality of care starts to decline. The other piece of this VC and AI takeover of the field is significant concerns about client data. Companies like BH have already been fined for selling client data to Meta, so that Meta could use that data to target ads. With the current admin, the loosening of privacy could lead to things much more sinister than targeted ads. Story 11. Businesses built around the 7 deadly sins are always excellent revenue sources. The human condition is recession-proof. Story 12. Any industry that fills the void left by having a partner and friends. People are lonelier than ever. So pets, adult content, entertainment distractions, dumbass consumables, looking at you, Labubu, and obviously dating apps. OkCupid is up 115 YT. Edit. My fudge bad. Match Group is down 20 YT. I don't know which stock I checked to see up 115. Turns out I'm wrong. Dating apps are fudge. I guess if they worked, we wouldn't have a loneliness epidemic. Shoot product, shoot companies. Story 13. AI used to scam people. Between the building waves of AI voice and video spoofing real people, we are rapidly approaching the point where people need to meet in person to verify that messages being conveyed are real. Story 14. The adult content industry made more money than both the music industry and the movie industry combined last year. Think about that for a second. Story 15. If you ever have a chance to get into the wastewater or water industry, then that is a job that is never gonna go away. Story 16. In the UK, foster care. There's a desperate shortage of beds. After 15 years of reduced social spending and stagnating economy, most councils have upped their rates to self-employed local foster carers. The personal tax allowance for foster carers is huge at $18,000 tax-free plus $250 per week added to this for each child you look after. A foster carer can basically work tax-free. There's still a huge shortage. Due to a lack of local placements, the local authority turns to the markets. Independent fostering agencies are making absolute bank. It gets worse. Private children's homes are basically scalping councils for beds. There was a Rest is Money podcast on how rich individuals are no longer buying properties to rent for retirement income, but starting children's homes, as the profits are so good. So, how much are residential homes making? A local authority foster carer might get paid $18,000 to $26,000 a year for looking after a child. An independent fostering agency might charge $50,000 to $75,000 a year for a placement. A private residential home might charge up to $45,000 a week for a placement. As stated and sourced from the podcast, a single placement, $45,000 a week. So if you want lower council tax, become a foster carer. Edit. $45,000 is in rare and extreme cases. The usual is about $56,000 per week for private residential homes. Still a huge amount. Answer. The rates have changed. It's $19 to now $690 per household. Then you get $415 per child under 11 and $495 per child over 11 per week. Then you've got your personal allowance on top of that. For a family with 2 kids over 11, you can earn over $94,000 PA before tax. Local authority rates here are $250 PW and private is around $800 PW. Residential care is around $2,000, $3.5K per week, depending on the needs of the individual. Story 17. Dead people. There are more dead people than ever. A family member is a mortician by education, and though he has since retired out, he made great money doing it. Story 18. Data centers. Data center spending is responsible for almost 1.2% of US GDP. Yes, it is due to AI. The massive growth is almost certainly doing a lot to mask the effects on many macroeconomic metrics of recent economic disruption. More than 34 of SP 500 value is now in top AI investing tech stocks. 75 of SP 500 growth is due to these 7 stocks, job growth is bad, etc. Story 19. Industrial Controls Integration. Research what a PLC is, and you'll see a very large amount of industries rely on them in some capacity. Integrators are becoming gray, and the talent pool isn't refilling. Business is booming right now. Story 20. Remote scams and blackmail. Investment scams. Not counting crypto rug pulls and meme coins, I feel like that's a different area. Service cancellation scams, romance scams, pig butchering, blackmail, pretty much anything that convinces your parents' grandparents to buy a ton of gift cards or go to a crypto exchange terminal. There are entire buildings full with scam call centers, human trafficking where people are forced into scamming. It's a huge industry now. Story 21. AI. I wrote these programs back in 1970. I know they just repeat what they are taught. Though they can now scour the internet, that actually makes them more prone to stupidity. It's just words. People. Computers live in a world of hearsay. Story 22. Travel. Reddit loves to talk like everybody is living in destitute poverty. But I've worked in the travel industry for 15 years, and every sector is up right now. Hotel, air, cruise, tour, luxury, Disney, ski, etc. All of it is up. Story 23. The mobile gaming industry. It earns as much revenue as all of consoles, PC gaming combined. Everyone dislike them here on Reddit and the internet, and no one really talk about it. The profit margin must be crazy good for some of the bigger mobile games out. Story 24. Missiles. Everything and anything to do with missiles. Solid-state rocket motors. If you are 1424 and have a hunch you'd be satisfied or even enjoy being a part of solid-state rocket engines, this is your moment. Story 25. Walmart. Check out their most recent earnings report. They are eliminated. I got downvoted a couple days ago for correcting someone who thought Walmart was suffering from less foot traffic. Answer. I was never a Walmart shopper in the past. I think the last time I was in a Walmart was 2014 for a motorcycle battery. It was the dreaded dump I knew it would be. I went recently and was shocked how nice it was. Fully stocked, incredible selection. Produce was solidly good, meat still iffy, but I did buy some cut chicken there. It was nice and people were happy. They also had a ton of security, which is nice. Story 26. The pet industry, especially pet tech and premium pet services, is booming more than most people realize. Story 27. Data industry. Leash. I conceived a data company, API Automations, 4 years ago because I had 7 years in digital ads and I saw the writing on the wall. So I started selling consented data to whoever would buy it. Now, since DJT removed all restrictions related to copyright, AI, and essentially data, Elon and BlackRock Stolia are selling the GOV data. The marketplace from all angles is exploding. Looking at raising 8 figures because the company is in such an amazing position due to criminals making it so. Story 28. The darts industry. It started growing during COVID, but has exploded in the last couple of years, thanks mostly to Luke Littler. It's now one of the most watched sports on TV here in the UK and is massive across Europe. Story 29. Based on the ads I've seen and the concerned articles written, I'd say sports gambling. I voted for it not to be legal in my state, and unfortunately it passed, so I guess we're stuck with it. Story 30. Data storage. Since everything is based on cloud computing these days, companies are buying more into data storage. Story 31. Physical retail. Redditors insanely think that malls are dying because of the internet. Malls are dying because we built too many of them, and they started competing with each other, and malls are so expensive to operate that the business model doesn't work unless they're basically 100 leased. But if you drive around any dead mall, it's usually surrounded by miles and miles of thriving strip malls, which are just much cheaper to operate. Another thing to note is that converting dead malls for some other purpose is one of the dumbest suggestions you'll ever hear from a human person. There's one example of this being successfully done, and it was a mall from the 1800s that looks nothing like modern malls. It would be cheaper and easier to tear down a mall and build something new than it would to convert them into something useful. I've even seen people suggest cities take them over and operate them as free community centers, and I don't understand what world people are living in where they think that's feasible. It requires no specialized knowledge and no expertise whatsoever to intuitively understand that a giant building with giant ceilings and huge open spaces is going to cost a stupid amount of money to heat and cool. Just from the standpoint of building a community center or other city-related spaces, like a library or school, surely it's cheaper to retrofit a mall into smaller, more economical, heating and cooling-wise spaces than it is to completely tear it down and rebuild it. It's not. It is objectively and indisputably cheaper to tear down a mall and build a purpose-built building than it is to try to retrofit this massive, mostly empty space for some more practical purpose. This isn't my opinion, it is a factual description of construction costs. If it conflicts with what you assumed before you read this comment, use this as an opportunity to learn and change those assumptions, not to argue. Story 32. Self-storage. I rent a unit for my business, and since private equity took over, they've doubled the rent. Story 33. AI governance. If you are a policy, legal, security, or ethics person who can get to a power user level of AI understanding, like earn a couple of certs, read a few books, and have some basic experience fudge around with it, you are set. A lot of jobs are going to be automated, but you will need human beings establishing guardrails for both business and government. Answer: strongly disagree. In the US, there is zero regulation around AI or the data they use. SMBs will not spend money on governance unless it's a business enabler. In the EU, or if you're working for the Big Five, there are some opportunities. Otherwise, there are literally companies out there offering ISO 42001 for $1,200 a month. Most CISO are scared to sign off, take responsibility, these days because the risk is unknown. Your claim that a few certs and books will set you up is not an accurate representation of AI governance right now. Story 34. Mental health digital therapeutics. Startups providing VR therapy, guided meditation apps, and AI-driven behavioral health programs are scaling fast. AI is starting to even take therapists' jobs now. Story 35. I work in credit hire. It's unreal how much money you can making storing damaged vehicles, following a non-fault accident, hiring out vehicles, basically instead of a courtesy car, and then charging the at-fault insurers. I'm talking millions per month. OFSU, I'm still on minimum wage though. Story 36. Golf had a huge boom and revitalization across the industry during COVID and managed to stay busy even when people started to return to work. In North America, golf courses are one of the largest buyers in electric handheld equipment, at least from what I've seen in the Mid-Atlantic region. And now we're starting to see robotic mowers take over the industry, which helps alleviate the labor issues they've always had and remove a couple of the super expensive diesel-wide area mowers from their fleets. Story 37. You can really see the authoritarian adjacent industries booming under Trump right now. Private prison giants are making record profits off the mass deportation campaign, with the government paying them to lock up more people than ever. Surveillance and defense tech companies like Palantir are swimming in multi-billion-dollar contracts. Border security tech, AI infrastructure, it's all getting huge funding. Whatever you call it, authoritarian, security state, strongman-friendly, these sectors are cashing in big right now. Story 38. In Britain, anything associated with caravanning is currently raking it in, and it's not the stereotype of retired boomers propping it up. It's Gen X and the older millennials. Story 39. Just wait until your electric bill is as high as your mortgage. With the demand that AI and data centers will need, with the expected exports of LNG tripling, and with the current administration cut funding to alternative energy sources, solar, wind, etc., the cost of LNG is going to go through the roof. Never mind that the LNG wells we've been taping for the last 10 years are on the backside of production. Story 40. Scamming, if you can call that an industry. Big organized operations of hundreds or even thousands of people running rampant with impunity, and I heard from a personal banker that novice scammers actually go to school to learn how to scam on the internet. There's a desperate need for ways to break up these operations and protect and educate the vulnerable, like the elderly and mentally disabled, who are getting ripped off of their life savings. Story 41. Funeral services and end-of-life planning. The aging population, rising costs, pandemic mindset, shift massive growth. The passing tech industry, digital memorials, live-stream funerals, biodegradable caskets, is pulling in billions quietly while no one's paying attention. Story 42. Any industry where there is a job that requires actual physical labor. We are deporting the laborers, and the citizens that are left aren't ready for what is going to be asked of them. The obesity rate in the US doesn't lend itself to a strong labor force, no matter how you look at it. End of my soapbox. Story 43. The simple owner economy and virtual influencers serving it. Male loneliness is at its all-time high, and PPL have no idea how much money lonely men are willing to pay for their fave influencer to call out their name and say thank you on a live stream. There's even a YT documentary about this in China. Story 44. Harvesting cow poo for natural gas. Startup costs are cheap, and the companies make billions selling the RIN and other credits to companies in California who buy these credits to lower their carbon footprint without actually doing anything. Story 45. Smaller city tourism. OKC, for instance, has increased their tourism-specific economic impact by $1.6 billion in a single year. Affordability comes into play here, while other destinations are almost impossible to vacation to for the average John and Jane. Smaller markets have managed to keep pricing around the same, so people hungering for a vacation are starting to pick smaller destinations over the larger ones. Story 46. We'll be using this thread to find something to get out of my current job. Warehouse management is horrible and has ruined the industry for me. Airlines make a lot of money but don't like paying the people who keep the operations going $247 decent. Story 47. Electrical, as in we need electricians. The only reason I'm not is cause my boss at my current job gave me a big enough raise to stay where I am after one of our guys left to become an electrician. Story 48. Meanwhile, somewhere a data center is guzzling enough electricity to power a small country and collecting government subsidies like Pokemon cards. Story 49. The whole scam grift economy is way bigger than people realize. It's not just the classic phishing emails or fake investment groups that vanish overnight. Today, you've got AI-made news sites cranking out clickbait, random Discord invites that lead to pump-and-dump meme coins, and online courses that are just recycled YouTube content with a 500 price tag. And the crazy part is how cheap it is to set up now. Just a laptop, a bit of social media marketing, and bad intentions. Story 50. Education. Institutions keep adding educations but not removing the old ones, at least here in Denmark, the country. There's the university, which adds molecular and medical microbiology. Granted, they combined 2 educations, which results in double the students spread out in classes. And on the master's level, only 15 students a year get to study neuroscience in Beijing. So they add, then there's the Academy for Commerce, which offers 3.5 years professional bachelor's. And like someone pointed out in here, they recently added cybersecurity as its own 3.5 years degree. Story 51. Vertical farming is booming. It's a sustainable way to grow food in cities, and big tech is starting to invest in it. It's going to be huge in the coming years. Answer: vertical farming currently doesn't scale at anything approaching profitability as compared to plain old horizontally grown products, and the energy requirements for vertical aren't particularly sustainable at present. Likewise, despite projections of scalability of intentionally farmed, vertically grown food products, what is rarely discussed by those making the projections, equipment sales companies, are the number of unintentionally farmed unwanted organisms that do grow quite easily at scale in vertical farming outfits, and which can readily hose multiple crop cycles until corrected. 4. It's hard to justify a business model that basically says, take this well-functioning process and protocol for growing food that can be summarized as throw some seed at soil, add pesticides, fertilizer, water, and sunlight, and wait for harvest, and instead reinvent and construct basically every aspect of the protocol for outdoor sun-grown farming and adapt it